The music found her first. Not the music inside the big hall downstairs. That would come later. What reached Ada through the floor of her hotel room was something different, something warmer. The sound of 600 Nigerian people who had eaten good food and were now ready to celebrate. She could feel it in the bottom of her bare feet. A low, steady hum. She was sitting on the edge of a soft bench at the foot of the bed. Her dress, white and beautiful, chosen carefully for this day, was spread out around her on the floor like a big flower that had not yet opened. Her phone was in both hands. She had not moved in 11 minutes. She had been writing the message for 6 of those minutes. 3 sentences. She typed it. She deleted it. She typed it again. Now it just sat there on her screen, and she did not know if sending it was the bravest thing she had ever done or the most foolish. She looked up at the mirror across the room. The woman looking back at her had a face that all of Lagos had called beautiful for 3 months. Chief Ease's bride. That was who the woman in the mirror was. Pretty, lucky, successful. Ada looked away. 42 floors below her, in the big hall that Chief Emeka Ez had paid so much money for, enough money to run a school for 11 years, the most talked about wedding in Lagos was going exactly as planned. The white roses came from Nairobi, the lights hanging from the ceiling were made of real crystal. The people in the room were some of the most powerful in Nigeria, politicians, oil company bosses, their well-dressed wives, and famous Nollywood faces. Every table had flowers that cost more than most workers there earned in a month. Every camera in the room pointed at the same spot, where Chief Ease stood near the altar in his white and gold agbada. He was smiling. The smile of a man who had read every line of a deal and was sure the other person had not. He had been sure about Ada for 18 months. Smart, he had thought, when his people first told him about her. Careful. Good values. Almost too good. No rich family behind her. No powerful friends. She wants to make it, and she is too scared to lose it. He had watched her fight a case in the Lagos High Court before he ever walked up to say hello. She had been brilliant. He had understood right away what she was worth to him, not as a wife, as a tool. The wedding was a plan. A smart lawyer wife whose name was on a law firm, whose signature meant something in 3 countries. That was not love. That was business. And Chief Ease had always at his heart been a businessman. He asked her to marry him after 9 months. She cried. He thought the crying was good. He did not know, standing at that altar, that the woman upstairs had been awake since 2 in the morning. He did not know about the photographs. Ada put the phone down beside her and pressed both hands flat on her legs. Stop shaking, she told herself. Okafor women do not shake. Her grandmother's voice, not her own. The voice that came when she needed to be stronger than she felt. Ni ihi o buladara ada ana acho o ihi gami biasite nemeya. My daughter, everything that falls is looking for what it will build from inside the breaking. She breathed. 3 days ago, she had been reading through some work files when she found something wrong. Money had moved through her firm's account. Money she never touched. Her firm's name was on the papers. Her signature was on them too. Copied so well it told her right away that someone had been practicing. The amount. $1.2 million sent through a fake company far away in the Cayman Islands. She sat very still for a long time. Then she opened 4 more files. The night before the wedding, Emeka called her into his private study. He was warm with her the way he always was when he wanted her to feel she had no choice. He put a paper on the desk between them like he was giving her a present. You are already part of this, my dear. His voice was soft, almost kind. If you walk away now, you will only destroy yourself. Smile tomorrow. It will be the best day of your life. She looked at the paper, then she looked at him. She smiled. Of course, she said. You're right. She went upstairs. She waited. She listened until his breathing through the door got slow and heavy with sleep. Then she took out her phone and took pictures of every paper in that study. Quietly, one by one. For 40 minutes, alone in the dark with his crimes, she built the thing that would finish him. What she did not yet know was what to do with it alone. His friends went all the way to Abuja. His lawyers had already killed 2 investigations before this one. In Lagos, Chief Emeka Ease was not just powerful. He was the kind of powerful that made other powerful men speak carefully around him. She needed someone he could not touch. There was only one person in the world she trusted completely. Only one person who lived outside everything Emeka Ease controlled. She picked the phone back up. The message was still there. Jae-won. I know it has been 10 years. We spoke last. I know I have no right to ask you anything, but I am in trouble that I cannot fix alone, and you are the only person I trusted most that can help me. I am at the Echo Atlantic. If you still want me, come get me. She read it one more time. Downstairs, 600 voices rose together laughing at something she could not hear. Her mother was somewhere in that sound. In her gold and dark red Aso Oke, hands folded in her lap, fingers touching the small gold cross at her neck, Ada closed her eyes. Then she pressed send. 42 floors below. A man who had never once been wrong about a woman smiled at his guests and looked at his watch. In Seoul, no, not Seoul. 3 kilometers away, in a hotel room on the 40th floor of the same building, a phone lit up on a glass table. The man who picked it up had been in Lagos for 36 hours. He came for business, nothing to do with weddings. He read 4 words. He stood up. Can you tell me, please, have you ever watched someone build their whole life with their own 2 hands, Arini, and then watch someone else try to use those hands against them? Drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Because what happens next in that bridal suite? Nobody in that ballroom is ready for it. He did not pause. He did not think about it for 1 minute. He picked up his jacket from the chair with one hand and his other phone from the glass table with the other. He walked to the door. In the corridor outside his room, 2 men were already waiting. They had seen his face when he stood up, and they knew what that face meant. He said 4 words to them in Korean. They moved immediately. It was 11:47 in the morning. The wedding was set for 1 o'clock. Ada stood up from the bench. She walked to the window. Lagos was spread out below her. The ocean on one side, the city on the other, all of it bright and loud and alive in the way Lagos is always alive, like it does not know how to be anything else. She pressed one hand flat against the cold glass. What have I done? It was not a question. It was just a thought that moved through her like water. She had sent the message. It was gone. Whatever came next, came next. She turned away from the window and sat back down. Here is something nobody in that ballroom knew. Ada Okafor did not grow up with any of this. Not the white dress, not the crystal lights, not the 600 guests, not the Echo Atlantic Hotel with its cold marble floors and its air that smelled like money. She grew up in a flat in Enugu. 3 rooms, her mother, her father, and her. The flat had only one ceiling fan that made a clicking sound every time it turned. In the hot months, Ada would lie on the floor under that fan and read law books, story books, any book she could find, because her father said that a child who reads will never be poor in her mind, even if she is poor in her pocket. Her father died when she was 14. He left behind love and debt, a lot of both. Her mother, Mama Okafor, did not fall apart. That was not the kind of woman she was. She tied her wrapper tighter and she worked. She cleaned offices. She sold fabric at the market on weekends. She put food on the table and school fees in an envelope, and she never once let Ada see her cry. Not once. Ada saw her cry exactly 1 time. The day Ada got her scholarship letter to study law at the University of Lagos, Mama Okafor held that letter in both hands and her whole body shook, and she did not make a single sound. Just tears running down her face while she held the letter like it was a living thing. Ada had built everything from that moment. Scholarship by scholarship. Case by case. Late nights and early mornings and years of being the only woman in the room and sometimes the only Nigerian and always a Mumbai, the one who had to be twice as good to be taken half as seriously. She had done it. She had built a firm. She had a name. She had a reputation that other lawyers respected and some feared. And then Emeka Ease had walked into her courtroom and smiled at her. She had not known in the beginning what he was. That was the part that still made her jaw tight when she thought about it. She had thought he was a powerful man who saw something real in her. She had thought for a little while that maybe this was what it felt like when someone chose you not in spite of your strength but because of it. She had been wrong. She understood now exactly what he had seen when he looked at her. He had seen a tool that had built its own handle. The first time she felt something was wrong was 8 months into the relationship. A client meeting she had not been told about until it was over. Papers that had passed through her office without going through her, small things. Things she told herself were just the way powerful men operated. Fast, impatient, assuming the people around them would keep up. She had kept up. She had kept up right until 3 days ago when she opened that file. $1.2 million. She had stared at the number for a long time. Her signature was perfect. Whoever copied it had studied it carefully. The loop on the A. The way the O in Okafor closed at the top. Every detail was right, which meant someone had been watching her sign things for a long time. She opened the next file, then the next. By the time she reached the 5th file, her hands were not shaking. That was the thing she noticed. She thought her hands would shake, but they did not. Instead, something went very quiet inside her. The kind of quiet that comes when a person finally understands something they have been not understanding for a long time. He never wanted a wife. He wanted a name. He wanted my name on his crimes. She sat at her desk for a long time after that. The office was empty. It was past 9 at night. The city outside her window was doing what Lagos does at 9 at night, loud and bright and completely indifferent to what was happening inside her. She thought about her mother. She thought about the Aso-Oke fabric, the land in the village that Mama Okafor had sold to buy it. The way her mother had called her 3 days ago to say, her voice full and warm, "Ada Nwam, God has answered my prayers. You have found a good man and I will see you married before I die happy." Ada had said, "Yes, Mama, thank you, Mama." And then she had sat alone in the dark and thought very carefully about what to do next. The night before the wedding, she had gone into his study. He had called her in himself. That was the thing. He had called her in and shown her the document like it was a lesson he was teaching. Patient, almost kind. The $4.7 million transaction, her firm's name at the top, her signature at the bottom. "You are already part of this, my dear." She had looked at the paper. She had looked at his face. He believed it completely. She could see that. He believed she was trapped. He believed the combination of her mother's happiness and her own fear of losing everything was a cage he had built so well that she would never find the door. He had forgotten one thing. Ada Okafor had spent 15 years learning exactly how cages like this were built. She knew every clause, every legal thread, every way a corrupt document could be unwound in a court of laws if you had the right evidence and the right person standing behind you. She smiled at him. "Of course, you're right." She went upstairs. She waited until he slept. Then she went back to that study in the dark, and she photographed everything. Every paper, every file, every number. 40 minutes of total silence broken only by the soft click of her phone camera and the distant sound of Lagos at 2 a.m. When she was done, she went back to her room and sat on the edge of the bed and thought about a boy she had not spoken to in 10 years. She had met Kim Jae-won when she was 16. His father was a Korean diplomat posted to Abuja, and Jae-won had arrived at her school in the middle of a Wednesday with no warning. Tall, quiet, looking at everything like he was filing it away somewhere. The other students found him strange. Ada found him interesting. She sat next to him in the library 3 days after he arrived because it was the only empty seat and she had work to do. He did not speak to her for 40 minutes. Then he said, without looking up from his book, "You read very fast." She said, without looking up from hers, "You watch people very carefully." He looked up then, and she looked up. And something was decided in that moment that neither of them had words for yet. They were inseparable for 3 years. Not in the loud way, not in the way of teenagers who need everyone to know. In the quiet way. The way of two people who have found the one other person in the world who speaks their specific language. Not English, not Korean, not Igbo, but the private language of two minds that work the same way. He taught her to say, "Nega neol bogo shipeo." I miss you in Korean. She taught him, "Aihurum ginanya." I love you in Igbo. They spoke both to each other like prayers. When his family left Abuja, she was 19. They stood at the airport, and he held both her hands and he said something to her in Korean, slowly, so she would remember every word. She did not know, standing there, that she would carry those words for 10 years without knowing when she would need them. She had waited. Life had moved. She had told herself many times that she was done waiting. She had never quite believed herself. Now it was 11:52 in the morning. The wedding was in just over an hour. Downstairs the music had gotten louder. She could hear the MC's voice now. Deep and smooth and working the crowd the way Lagos MCs do, like warming up a fire. She could hear laughter. She could hear the specific sound of expensive shoes on a marble floor. And she could hear, if she was very still, nothing from her phone. She picked it up. No reply. She put it back down. She told herself this was fine. She told herself she had other options. She told herself that she was Ada Okafor, and she had never once needed saving in her life, and she was not going to start needing it now. Her hands were very cold. She was staring at the phone when someone knocked on the door of the bridal suite. 3 knocks. Quiet, certain. Not the door attendant. Not her bridesmaids. They would have called through the door first. This was the knock of someone who already knew she was there and was simply letting her know they had arrived. She stood up slowly. She walked to the door. She opened it. Kim Jae-won was standing in the hallway in a dark suit. No tie. Top button closed. There was a second phone in his left hand. He slipped it into his pocket the moment she opened the door, quietly, without looking down, like a man who had been in the middle of something and had simply paused it. His hands came to his sides and he looked at her the way he had always looked at her, like he was filing something away, like he was making sure he would not forget. He had not changed as much as she expected. He had changed in the ways she expected, and older, quieter, something behind his eyes that had not been there at 19, something that knew things. But the stillness was the same, the particular way he held himself, like a man who had not been in a hurry in a very long time and did not intend to start. He looked at her face, then he looked at the dress, then he looked at her face again. He said nothing for a moment. Outside the window at the end of the hallway, the Lagos sun was very bright. Then he said in Korean very quietly, "Tell me everything," she told him. She stood in the doorway of the bridal suite in her white wedding dress and she told him everything, the files, the signature, the document she had photographed at 2 a.m, the $4.7 million, the study, what Emeka had said to her. Jae-won listened. He did not interrupt. He did not react. He just listened with his whole body. The way she remembered, the way that had always made her feel like the most important person in any room, and then when she finished, he was quiet for 3 full seconds. Then he said, "Do you still have the photographs?" "Yes," she said, "send them to this number." He held out a small white card, just a number, no name. She took the card. Her fingers were still cold. Jae-won, she said, he has people everywhere in this city. Lawyers, police, politicians, I do not know if... Ada. He said her name the same way he had always said it, like it meant something specific to him. Like it was not just a name, but a word in his private language. Send the photographs, he said, and then go back inside and sit down. I need 20 minutes. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. She went back inside. What Ada did not know, what nobody in that hotel knew except the 3 men waiting in a black car in the car park below Lagos, was that Kim Jae-won had not come to Lagos for a business meeting. He had come to Lagos because 18 months ago his team had started building a case against a Nigerian businessman named Chief Emeka Eze. The case was almost complete. It had been waiting for one thing. The photographs Ada had just sent to that number were the last piece. Downstairs, Chief Eze laughed at something a senator said and straightened his agbada and looked at his watch. 12 minutes to 1. He picked up his phone and sent a message to his personal assistant. Tell her it is time to come down. He put the phone back in his pocket and smiled at the room. He had no idea that 20 floors above him, in a bridal suite that smelled of white roses and something older and warmer, shea butter, a Nigerian mother's perfume. The specific smell of an Aso-OK wrapper worn only on the most important days. Ada Okafor was sitting on the edge of a bench sending photographs to a number she had received 3 minutes ago. He had no idea that the door to the bridal suite had just opened again. He had no idea that the man standing in it was not a wedding guest. He had no idea that the 20 minutes he had been given were already running. He was still smiling when his phone buzzed with Ada's reply. I am on my way, she said. You think she is walking into that hall alone. You think this is still his wedding. Stay with us. Because in the next few minutes, Chief Emeka Eze is going to learn something that men like him never believe until it is already too late, that the woman he thought he controlled was never his to begin with. Subscribe and stay with me because what happens next will change everything. At exactly 1 o'clock, the doors of the ballroom opened. 600 people turned to look. The string quartet began to play. Every camera in the room pointed at the entrance. Chief Eze straightened at the altar. He put his hands together in front of him. He smiled the smile he had been practicing. Warm, proud, the smile of a man receiving something he had earned. He waited. 1 second, 5 seconds, 10. The music kept playing. Ada did not appear. She was in the garden. Not the ballroom, not the corridor leading to the ballroom. The small hotel garden on the ground floor, the one that the wedding planner had used for the morning photographs, with its low green hedges and its concrete benches, and the view of the Lagos waterfront beyond the glass fence. She had walked down the back staircase in her white dress with her shoes in her hand, and she had not looked at a single person on the way. She sat on the bench closest to the water. She put her feet on the grass. She waited. Upstairs in the ballroom, the MC's voice filled the silence that the bride had left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, just a small delay. Please enjoy the music. Polite laughter. The sound of glasses being refilled. Chief Eze did not move from the altar. His smile had not changed. His eyes had. He looked at the door, then at his watch, then at the door again. The room had started to feel it, that specific silence that spreads through a crowd when something is wrong but nobody wants to be the first to say it. A whisper started somewhere near the back, then another. He heard his own name move through the room like a question. His jaw tightened. For the first time in 18 months, Chief Emeka Eze did not know what was coming next. His personal assistant appeared at his elbow and said something quietly. Eze nodded once. His assistant disappeared. He checked his watch. He was not worried. Not yet. He had known Ada for 18 months. He knew how she thought. She was nervous. She was a woman who felt things deeply. He had always found that useful. She would come down. She had no choice, and she knew it. He had built the cage himself. He smoothed his agbada and nodded at a senator across the room. He was not worried. In the front row, Mama Okafor had not moved. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her gold and dark red Aso Oke was still perfect. She had not shifted in her seat even once since she sat down. She was the kind of woman who had learned a long time ago how to be very still when something was wrong. She was touching the small gold cross at her neck. Her eyes were on the door. The 20 minutes Jae-won had asked for were now 34. Ada knew because she had been counting. She was sitting in the garden with her phone face down on the bench beside her when she heard footsteps on the path behind her. She did not turn around. She knew the sound of those footsteps. She had memorized them at 16 in the corridors of a school in Abuja, and some things the body does not forget. Jae-won sat down beside her. He did not speak for a moment. They both looked at the water. Then he said, "It is done." She turned to look at him. His face was the same as it always was, still, certain. But his eyes had something in them that she recognized. The look of a man who has just put down something very heavy. "What does that mean?" she said. It was not quite a question. "It means," he said, "that the EFCC is upstairs right now. It means the international team has filed in 3 jurisdictions. It means every account connected to those documents was frozen 40 minutes ago." He paused. "It means he cannot run. There is nowhere to run to." Ada was quiet. A small wind came off the water and moved through the garden. "The photographs," she said, "were everything," he said. "My team had the structure. We had the shell companies and the money trails, but we did not have the original documents with his direct instruction. What you photographed in that study, those were the ones signed in his handwriting. Those were the ones that put him at the center of it instead of behind it." He looked at her. "You built the case, Ada, not me. You." She looked back at the water. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were in her lap, and she was pressing them flat against her legs the way she did when she was holding something inside that needed to stay inside a little longer. "My mother," she said quietly. Jae-won did not answer right away. That was one of the things she had always trusted about him. He never filled silence with words that had not earned their place. "She is inside," he said finally. "She does not know yet." Ada nodded once. She closed her eyes. They heard it before they saw it. A change in the sound coming from the hotel. The music stopped. Then voices, not the warm, celebratory voices of before, but something sharper, more confused. The specific sound of a large crowd understanding that something has gone wrong. Then, through the glass wall of the hotel garden, they could see it. 4 men in plain clothes moving through the ballroom with the quiet, purposeful walk of people who do not need to rush because they have already won. Behind them, 2 uniformed officers, and behind them a woman in a dark suit carrying a folder. The kind of folder that contains the kind of papers that end things. 600 people parted for them without being asked. He saw the EFCC officers first, then he saw the man walking behind them. Not in uniform, not carrying anything. Just walking. Slowly, with his hands in his pockets and his jacket open, and the particular stillness of someone who has already won and feels no need to perform it. Kim Jae-won walked through the center of that ballroom the way he walked through every room, like he had decided something before he arrived and was simply here to confirm it. He stopped 6 feet from the altar. He did not speak. He did not need to. He just looked at Chief Emeka Ease, directly, quietly, with the specific patience of a man who has been waiting 18 months for this exact moment and finds it to be exactly what he expected. Chief Ease looked at him. Something moved across his face. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The recognition of a man who suddenly understands that the game he thought he was playing had a player in it, and he never saw. He had never even imagined. "Who are you?" Easy said. His voice was still controlled, still performing confidence, but it cost him something now. Jae-won looked at him for one long moment. Then he said, very quietly in the voice of a man who never needs to raise it, I am the person she trusted. He turned and walked back through the crowd. 600 people watched him leave. Not one of them spoke. Chief Ease saw them coming. Ada watched his face through the glass from the garden. She watched the smile change. She watched him say something to the man nearest him, a senator, one of his oldest connections in Abuja, and she watched the senator take one small step back. Just one step. But it was enough. It was the step that said, I do not know this man. I have never been certain I knew this man. That step cost Chief Ease everything that the documents had not already taken. The woman in the dark suit reached him at the altar. She opened the folder. She said something to him, quietly, professionally, the way people in her position are trained to say things that destroy lives without raising their voice. Chief Ease looked at the folder. His face went the color of old ash. He looked up. His eyes moved across the room, across the senators and the commissioners and the oil executives and the Nollywood faces, looking for one face that would hold his gaze, looking for one person who would stand with him in this moment. Not one person held his gaze. Not one. He straightened. He said something to the woman in the dark suit. She shook her head once. He was escorted out of his own wedding in front of every camera in the room and every powerful person in Lagos he had ever asked a favor from. The doors closed behind him. For 3 full seconds, the ballroom was completely silent. Then everyone started talking at once. In the front row, Mama Okafor had not moved. She had watched everything. Her hands were still in her lap. She was still touching the gold cross. But her face was doing something complicated and private. The way faces do when a person is processing more than one thing at the same time and does not have words for any of it. Ada's cousin, a tall young woman named Chisholm, who had been sitting 2 seats away, leaned over and said something to her quietly. Mama Okafor listened. She did not speak for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes, her lips moved. Something small and private, just between her and God, and the memory of a man who had given her a gold cross the year before he died. She sat like that for 4 seconds. Then she opened her eyes. She smoothed her aso oak with both hands. Once firmly, the way a woman smooths something that needs to be right before she stands up. She stood up. She looked at Chisholm and said, "Where is my daughter?" Not a question. A direction. Ada heard her mother before she saw her. The sound of her mother's footsteps on the garden path, the specific weight and rhythm of them, the sound she had known since she was small enough to run to it, made something open up in her chest that she had been keeping closed since 2 a.m. She stood up. Mama Okafor came through the garden door in her gold and dark red aso oke, and she stopped when she saw Ada. She looked at her daughter, all of her, the white dress and the bare feet on the grass and the face that was trying very hard to hold itself together. She opened her arms. Ada crossed the garden in 4 steps. She did not cry immediately. She held on first. She pressed her face into her mother's neck the way she had not done since she was 14 years old and her father had just died and the world had just become a different and harder place. She held on and her mother held back, strong and certain, the arms of a woman who had been holding things together her entire life. Then Ada cried. Not loudly, not the way people cry in films. She cried the way people cry when they have been holding something for so long that the body simply decides, enough. Put it down now. Put it down. Mama Okafor stroked her daughter's hair. She did not say it is okay. She did not say stop crying. She said what Igbo mothers say when their children are breaking and healing at the same time. Nam no ibi I am here. I am right here. They stood like that for a long time. Jae-won had moved to the far end of the garden. He was standing with his back to them, looking at the water, giving them the only thing they needed right now. Space. After a while, Mama Okafor pulled back and held Ada's face in both her hands. She looked at her daughter for a long time. Her eyes were wet, but her face was steady. She said, in Igbo slowly, "Your father would have been so proud of you." Ada's breath caught. "Not because of the wedding," Mama Okafor said. "Not because of any man. Because of what you did in that study at 2 a.m. Because you did not run. Because you did not bend." She touched Ada's face. "That is my daughter. That has always been my daughter." Ada could not speak. Her mother looked past her then, at the man standing at the far end of the garden with his back turned and his hands in his pockets, looking at the Lagos waterfront like he had all the time in the world. Mama Okafor watched him for a moment. Then she said, very quietly, almost to herself, "Ria, so this is the Korean boy." Ada made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Mama, I am just saying," Mama Okafor said. She patted Ada's cheek once. Then she smoothed her "aso okay" again, a gesture so familiar and so her that Ada felt it in her whole body. And she walked back through the garden door and left them alone. Ada turned around. Jae-won was still standing at the far end of the garden. He had not moved, but he had turned around sometime in the last few minutes quietly, and he was looking at her. She walked toward him. She sat back down on the bench. After a moment, he sat beside her. The Lagos sun was lower now. It turned the water gold, and the air was softer than it had been all day. Somewhere behind them in the hotel, the sound of 600 people rearranging their understanding of the afternoon continued. Voices and movement, and the particular chaos of an event that has become a story everyone will be telling for years. Out here in the garden, there was just the water and the light and the two of them. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Jae-won said something in Korean, quietly, slowly. The same words he had said to her at an airport in Abuja 10 years ago, holding both her hands, speaking slowly so she would remember. She had remembered. "Nega neol gidarigo isulj, eodiseo istanji." I will be waiting for you, wherever you are. Ada looked at the water. Her feet were still bare on the grass. Her dress was still white around her. The cross her mother wore was inside the hotel, close to a heartbeat that had held her whole life together. She had lost a cage today. She had not lost a single thing that mattered. She turned to look at him. She answered him. In Igbo, the language she had taught him in a library in Abuja when they were both young and did not yet know what the world would ask of them. "I hurum ginanya." I love you. He looked at her. He did not smile. He did not need to. He just looked at her the way he had always looked at her, like he was making sure he would not forget. And then he looked back at the water. And they sat together in the garden as the sun went down over Lagos. And for the first time since 2 a.m, Ada Okafor let herself breathe. This story was about what happens when a man mistakes a woman's patience for weakness and spends the rest of his life learning the difference. Chief Emeka Ease built a cage using someone else's name, someone else's integrity, and someone else's mother's dreams. He forgot one thing. The woman whose name he stole had spent 15 years learning exactly how cages like his are built, and she knew every single way out. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone who lived to regret it? Drop it below, so that people might learn from you if this story really moved you. If you felt Ada in your chest, if you saw your mother in Mama Okafor. What would you have done in that bridal suite? Drop your answer in the comments right now. And if this story helped you breathe today, please kindly like and subscribe to the channel. It truly keeps us going. Share this with someone who needs to see it. They will thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this community. God bless you, and I will see you in the next story. Bye.